While most MSPs are out there hunting endlessly for new clients, the smart ones know their richest opportunities lie in the fields they already own. My name's James Steele and this is Harvest, where MSPs and industry experts share proven ways to grow profitable revenue from your current customer base. No theory, no fluff, just field-tested strategies that work. Let's grow.
If I go and speak to my customers proactively, they might complain, or they might want to leave us, or they might want to moan about something. Unless you've got someone from OpenAI or Microsoft or whatever in the room, then no one is an expert. They've just played around with ChatGPT for a couple of hours more than average Joe. I'm very anti-stack. Vendors have built up this stack model because it's neat for them to sell products in that format. They'll always forget, and you don't want to, ram it down their throats, but you want to communicate enough that they remember that you can sell printers. If I had £1 every time an MSP said to me, just get me in front of customers and I can sell, because of this false confidence that it's not their fault. They built this confidence through selling to referrals. Suddenly there's a shock. Would you give me 15 grand for a new client?
Hey, thanks so much for joining me for this episode of Harvest. If you want a little bit of small talk, a little bit of chit chat, you come to the wrong place. We are talking how to get that gold that we all know is in your existing customer base. We're here to help you maximize your revenue from existing customers. And I've got a fabulous guest who has been there, worked in an MSP, and has now moved to a fantastically successful marketing agency in the MSP space, Wingman Agency, with over 200 MSPs, and he's got some straight talking advice. I love talking to Dave because he just says it like it is, and that's quite refreshing sometimes, isn't it? He's going to talk to you about why some MSPs are terrified of their customers, why confidence is so important, maybe even more so than process, how to turn your PSA tickets into content gold, and a really interesting take on vendor stacks and why they might be killing your close rates, which is great. We talk about intent data as well. That's a topic that I'm definitely interested in, and lots more. So get your notepad ready. Let's dive in. But before we do, I want to give a quick shout out. Sales Builder has just come out of the Halo PSA beta phase. If you want to create beautiful quotes fast and you're using Halo, ConnectWise, or Autotask, make sure you go and check out salesbuilder.com. Let's get on with it. So it is with great pleasure that I get to introduce my friend, Dave Sutton from Wingman Agency. Dave is very accomplished in the area of generating new business for your MSP, but he's also a bit of a whiz with understanding the other components that are needed to go into a successful marketing engine for your existing customers. So I'm really looking forward to picking his brains today. Dave, welcome to Harvest. How are you doing?
Yeah, great, thank you. Appreciate your time being here. This might well be the longest one you've ever recorded if I get on my soapbox.
Excellent. That's kind of why I brought you on, really, because I love it when you get on your soapbox. So hopefully there'll be plenty of that. Listen, before we start talking about all the marketing-y type stuff that we want to cover, give us a misconception about you. When people meet you, what's something that they get wrong about you?
Well, I guess seeing me as an owner of a marketing agency, we would perhaps get misconstrued as yet another fluffy bunch of people that are good with colouring pens and pencils, but maybe can't do anything productive that is going to move the needle on sales. So I guess my differentiator to typical marketing people, I'm a salesperson that learnt marketing as an aid to sales rather than somebody that was in marketing and then was forced to sell. So I kind of got it maybe the right way around. And I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt with MSP sales with a career of nearly 10 years across three businesses, delivering managed services. So I wasn't a techie, I wasn't a business owner, but I've been there in the trenches selling the services. So I get it.
Excellent. And getting it is what we need. So this is basically about how we can generate more business from our existing customer base. So let's have a little talk then about some of the things MSPs are lacking or missing out at the moment that might be costing them in terms of their opportunities within their existing customer base. What's the number one thing on the list that people don't have in place that's critical to be making the most of opportunities?
First thing is confidence, I think. There is a lack of confidence maybe in communicating with existing customers, being bold in having conversations with them more regularly through maybe fear. If I go and speak to my customers proactively, they might complain, or they might want to leave us, or they might want to moan about something. So I think you've kind of got to level with yourself and accept that you may get some of that, but you will probably get a hell of a lot less than you're assuming that you will get. So I think having that confidence to have the conversations, speak to customers customers regularly about their business, not about service, not about reports, KPIs, how many tickets we fixed and how quickly we did it. People don't care about that as long as the lights are on and you're supporting them day to day. When you ask them for that meeting, we hear so many people go, oh, we sort of tried this QBR thing, but we can't get in the room with them. Our customers won't talk to us. And I think maybe it's around the positioning. So if you're confident in what you're going to talk to them about, and that should be their business. What's the roadmap? What are you doing? Are you launching new products? Are you moving office? Are you acquiring other businesses? What change is there within your organization that's going to have an impact on technology? And therefore, we need to be in the room to help you circumvent any issues you might have on the way. Don't let technology be an afterthought, which it is in so many businesses. They make a decision and then don't think about the tech, and maybe they've just screwed themselves over, or it's going to cost them a load of money to achieve their goals. So I think the MSP needs to map out, how are they going to label the QBR? How are they going to label the conversation? And don't make it an account review, because people don't want to see the reports. We don't want to talk about the service, because the service is fine. So why are they going to want to talk about it? And if the service isn't fine, then your conversation is going to be very different in the first place, and you're not going to be able to achieve what you want to set out to achieve. So I think have a plan, set out the outcomes for the client, and be bold with sharing that with them. We want to come and talk to you about these 3 things. We need to learn about your business so we can better help you move forward. And as a result of having that conversation with us, you will achieve these 3 things. More insight, be able to make better informed decisions about budgets and the direction that you're going to head in, and plan ahead so there's no surprises. So I think starts with that. You've got to have a bit of a structure, a bit of a framework, be prepared to have conversations first and foremost.
And so just bumping up the frequency of communication is going to certainly move the needle, having a bit of confidence around that, as you've suggested. So let's take it then from the stage where, okay, we're having these conversations and we're starting to generate some interest. At that point that we've got that interest, how do we go about dealing with what we're the opportunities that we're creating? So in terms of sort of the process that you would recommend, I mean, this ties into some of the work that you do. Obviously, you'll be generating new business from net new customers as well. But what are MSPs, what they need to be getting right in terms of the process for handling those opportunities and seeing them through to success?
Loads of steps. Running an MSP is being very procedural when you think about kind of ticket processes and escalation, and so MSP owners can do it because they do it day in, day out with the way that they run IT. So apply the same logical process, even though sales and marketing feels illogical because it's subject to people, and people are fickle and difficult. So it's very much operating in the grey than in the black and white. But if you can build a system, build a mechanism, you've got a greater chance of success, because then you can never account for 100% of scenarios, but if you can account for 70 to 80% of scenarios by you directing a prospect or an existing client through a series of steps, this is what we're going to do, why, and what we're going to do next. You're holding their hand and you're setting the expectation of the journey you're going to take them through. So for example, a lot of marketing can generate intent data. It may be website visitors, it might be clicks on emails.
This is a really interesting area, isn't it? The intent side of things. I don't know many companies that are doing this. So yeah, definitely talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, that big gap between, people talk about analytics, what's the point of Google Analytics? Because we can see that, unknown entities have been on certain pages on our website. And they might give you some indicators on, trends and patterns and stuff, but it's useless unless you actually know who the people are. So if you've got a marketing engine that's communicating, either with new prospects, so new logos, or existing clients, or ideally a combination of the two, then Fred has clicked on that link and he's gone on the website and spent 3 minutes reading an article on something to do with cybersecurity or the latest AI in Microsoft 365 or whatever. You now have got some level of information on Fred's interest, and although that might be a very high level of intent, but he's demonstrated he's got interest in a particular subject. So
that's powerful, isn't it? That's giving you a real picture about kind of their behaviours in between the QBR when it's deathly silent, perhaps. It's giving you a picture, isn't it, of what they're interested in and how engaged they are with you, or not.
People lurk, don't they? No one likes to be sold to, especially us Brits, and around the world, it's moving more to people doing a large part of their homework. I believe there's stats now that sort of say 75% of the buying decision is made by the time someone fills in that contact form or books a sales meeting with you. They kind of are looking for reasons to maybe not go ahead and just overcome their objections than they are in shopping around. People also value their time more. They're not going to. Some difficult weird people might interview 5 potential MSPs or whatever, but most serious people have kind of already made their mind up. So but then you can't control the narrative. You don't know that they're interested until it's too late. And certainly when I think back to my MSP days, and I've heard this from God knows how many MSPs over the years, of customers that have gone and bought something from somewhere else, be it printers or CCTV or I don't know, some other system that you could provide and do actively provide to clients, but then they go, oh, the printer guy's here and he screwed up the network because he's put the same IP address on it that something else has got on the network.
That's a double whammy, isn't it? Not only have you missed the opportunity for business, but they've also created you work. And I have to say, I think this will always happen. But it's about reducing the chances of it happening, isn't it? Even if you're communicating all the time. I've experienced this myself. People always miss it, but it's making sure you're closing that window.
Yeah, they'll always forget, and you don't want to ram it down their throats, but you want to communicate enough that they remember that you can sell printers, so they don't need to go and buy it from John Lewis and do it themselves, or they don't need to go and get a managed print company that then screws up the network because they don't know what they're doing. And you can only do that if you're marketing to your existing clients, almost as much as you are to net new prospects. There's the whole white space analysis piece. What do we sell across the top and clients down the left, and fill in the boxes of what do and don't people buy from us, and think of a roadmap of there are some things that clients are just never going to need for whatever reason, but there'll be a lot that they will, and you want to make sure they're not buying it from somewhere else. So definitely, if you can
we're a big fan of that, and we have that one built into Sales Builder, so that's always white space is always a popular topic. That's really good. So you got the intent data, you got the white space.
Yeah, so in fact, coming back to the intent data, so I don't skip ahead too far, use those insights that you've got in order to shape the conversations and the messages that you should be putting out to people. So, most MSPs have not got, millions of customers. They've not got tens of thousands of people visiting their website all the time. So because it will be, a fairly modest number on average, it could be quite focused so that you can spearfish the messages. You don't have to put, it's not like Nike selling the latest flavor of trainers and they've got millions of potential customers to reach out to. That you might have 5 or 10 people that have been interested in a particular subject, so you can then reach out to them in a highly personalized way. And there are AI tools and stuff that can help you optimize this, but it's also not a huge time suck if you just tailor a bit of a message. Hey Fred, we noticed that you've been looking at this particular article recently. Here's something you might be interested in, a video I've just done, or something like that, to just nudge them along that buying journey a little bit more. Yes. Turn that initial intent that they demonstrated by showing some interest in something into a mechanism to start a conversation. I see you're interested in this. I've got some answers. Free 30 minutes or something, come and pick my brain. And even for an existing client, leverage that to start the conversation, to then slip in the QBR, kind of like a ninja with, I've got an agenda of I want to come and talk to you about these things, but use that as the excuse first. I remember I had a difficult estate agent as a client once in my first MSP, and the only way I could get in the room was saying, I need to review your account. Maybe you're overspending on some stuff. We can save you a few quid. I'd get in the room. By the end of it, he'd be spending more money. And then he said, hold on, you said you were going to save me money. Well, I had to say something to get the meeting with you, didn't you? So you can be a little bit cheeky.
Put that one in your notebook. There's your tactical advice. Lie to your customers for the purpose of material gain.
Well, yeah, sometimes a white lie maybe slightly.
Yeah, it's fine.
But if it's the value, if you make them realise, hold on, look, we know about your business, we know about trends, we've seen your interest in this particular thing, let us come and show you it, we can help you, give you more value, make them stickier, and then you drive them to, the whole white space analysis of, we notice that you aren't buying these things, these can help you, and then it becomes a sales conversation around, the value. But then you need to think about how to to nurture them. It's one thing to get the conversation, it's another to then carry that on to actually getting them to buy something. Because you'll have, MSPs are so used to referral business, which is great. The ink is already wet on the nib of their pen to sign the contract when you go in there, because their mates already said that you're great and they need to use you. They're probably on their knees because they've just had a cyber incident or their current IT is pretty crap. So you swoop in and sign the contract, and the next week you're onboarding them. That's not the case with net new business that you've gone out to cold, and likely isn't even the case with existing clients when it comes to white space, because they don't yet take cyber seriously enough, because maybe they're an unregulated business, so there isn't a compliance driver. Maybe because they haven't yet had their pants pulled down, they're not prepared to invest. And maybe there's other tools and new bells and whistles that they're not familiar with yet. So think about, lever that the bit of marketing that you do to get intent data, to have the white space conversation, and then think about how do I nurture that interest into engagement, that they're actually then ready to do something about it.
Okay, so I'd like to dive into the nurture side of things in just a moment. But in terms of the intent data, I can see a real obvious opportunity there where potentially, it's the amount of content you're creating, surely, that gives you those touch points potentially for the intent. What's realistic do you see? Because you could go crazy with this, couldn't you, and be creating videos galore and blog posts and what have you. But do you think there's a way to think about the content you're creating to sort of make sure that you're guiding people down that path? Like, would it be on a campaign basis? I've got a particular, phishing simulation campaign that I want to run, and I should just do some content on that and send it out by email? Or what do you reckon? Where's a good place to start with that?
Yeah, campaigns is the way to go. I think you need to think about not just what the vendors want you to push, because they're going to have an agenda if they've got the latest flavor of their cybersecurity product, and then they're lambasting you into selling it. But the market may not be ready for it yet.
Yeah.
They may well need it.
Yes.
Yes. They may well need it, but are they prepared to put their hand in their pocket? Most people suffer from that syndrome of very short arms and very deep pockets. So it's difficult to get them on board with something. If people don't know they have a problem, then they're not in the market for a solution for something that they don't know that they're suffering from. And maybe they aren't even suffering from it. You think about a lot of products are created to fix problems that probably aren't even really much of a problem in the first place. Certainly if you're a Dragon's Den viewer, you've probably seen God knows how many of those.
Or Shark Tank, or same idea, but exactly that.
Oh God, yeah. How many awful pitches there are for things that someone has laboured hours investing in that solves a problem that only 1 in a million people have. So that's probably not the case with most of the cyber tools, but it's how the client will see it. Unless they are feeling that pain right now, you're not going to go to the hospital and get a doctor to look at your leg, unless you're in agony with it. So they're just going to ignore it. So how can you get that message across? So first of all, you want to think of something that's topical. What do they care about in their business? And it's a hell of a lot easier if you've got a niche focus. If your MSP is focused on a particular sector or a particular common group of businesses, be it professional services, you serve white collar or blue collar, or you look after healthcare, and therefore the same applies in pharmaceuticals and biotech and kind of similarly aligned industries, or maybe regulated firms. So try and find a common lookalike that you can go out with something that would either be case study evidence of, look at these other firms that are just like you and they've had this problem and we've solved it, and drip feed that message in as a campaign to be able to get the problem across to them, to make them realise, especially if they're firms that they might aspire to be, like, oh yeah, we like the look of them, we want to be like them. Then trying to get people to spend money through aspiration rather than fear is always a better way to go. But that's also something else we've hit on recently is there's probably gold dust in your ticket system. In your PSA, there's probably millions of tickets for the past few years. And even if you looked back at the last 12, 18 months, what are the nature of requests that you've received? A lot of it's going to be, I've forgotten my password, because that's always going to be there. But so many will be, oh, I want to try Copilot, or I've played around with this AI thing, or I'm stuck doing this in Outlook or Teams or in a spreadsheet. So many of those requests will be, help me to achieve X, rather than X is broken, can you fix it for me?
Yes.
Even though they may sneakily pretend something's broken so they can get your help. But there will be a lot of demand for education. And use, AI tools now can make it so easy to analyze that data and spot patterns and trends. For, I don't know, the last 6 months, we've suddenly noticed that interest in doing AI stuff with data in SharePoint or whatever has gone up. So produce content on that. Not only can you use it as ticket fodder to, here's a video that answers an FAQ thing, and then your guys aren't wasting time answering the questions every single time.
That's a fantastic idea anyway, isn't it?
Content.
Does AI, can you actually connect, would it be via API? I'm getting very tactical now, but I'm just curious. Is it things like ChatGPT, Claude, just connects to like your Halo, your
Probably not. Most of the PSAs are pretty horrendous when it comes to integrations, I think. At a raw level, I mean, we've started to look at this with some of our clients so we can inform campaign plans that we put together based on trying to get ticket data from across our MSP client base, so we can spot trends and patterns en masse for millions of tickets rather than just hundreds or thousands of tickets.
Brilliant idea.
So we're very early in the stage with that, but even getting a CSV dump out of your PSA with that ticket data in there, particularly the initial opening question, what is the email the client has sent you, not what you've categorized it as, because that's not going to give you the language that the end user thinks in. So look at some of that stuff to help inform those campaigns. So yeah, you're right, James, when you say you need to have drip-fed messages over a period of time. One hit wonder, put something out, and it's I don't know, you do it at the wrong time of day, or you catch people on school holidays, or they're just busy at that moment in time, and that content's gone. You think how noisy social media is. Getting blogs to rank on Google is getting harder and harder. Now we've got the whole geo thing of AI-based search. You type something into Google, Gemini is trying to give you answers before you even get to the organic content. So I mean, potentially, that's something to aspire to, is to get content to be indexed by AI search, so then you get cited as a source if you're providing answers. And you're only going to do that by running campaigns. Being consistent with a message over 10, 12 weeks or so is probably a good way to run it.
Which is also an argument actually for starting with your existing customer base, because obviously you don't have that same challenge at that point. It's a case of distributing the content to those to the customers that know, like, and trust already.
Yeah, precisely. Building an audience is probably the most difficult thing when starting marketing. All of these data tools exist, and you can, go and easily get a list in 10 minutes. But do you know anything about them? Do you know who really is the decision maker? That, what I call the frog kissing exercise that we have to go through email or even telemarketing, picking up the phone and having conversations with people to find that out, to cleanse the list. So then when you start throwing emails out at people, the old school buy a list of 1 million records and shoot an email out. Most of the time you'll hit spam filters, you won't get delivered, you might get blacklisted. So all these considerations need to go into it. So yeah, start by cutting your teeth with existing clients that are friendly, and you're likely to have more of a conversation on, what did you think about that? Was that video good? Come on, be honest with me. Did it resonate? Did you share it with your team? And then apply those practices more broadly to a wider market.
Yeah, they're just much further down the funnel, aren't they, already? That's great place to start. So listen, I think you've given us some real tactical gold already. I love that intent data side of things. I mean, for anyone that's listening, I think that's such a key area. If it's a case that you do need a platform that will show you that data, that will give you that information. But just to sort of recap, we're talking about the ability to basically look at a tool like, I think lead info is one, and it will show you, okay, this person has been on the site, and in some cases, it actually shows you literally mouse movements around the screen and stuff. You can see exactly what they've been doing. So I think that's brilliant. This episode is sponsored by Sales Builder. I see so many MSP sales teams buried in admin instead of talking to customers and building relationships. We help you automate your sales process with standardized product catalogs and professional proposals. Our service matrix, or the white space module, that's the bit that shows you visually where the opportunities are in your customer base, from service gaps to upcoming renewals. Everything links directly with your PSA and, of course, your distributors. If you'd like to free up your sales team's time and spot more revenue opportunities, simply connect with me on LinkedIn or head to salesbuilder.com. Let's get back to it. So we've got running campaigns, we've got the content, we've got seeing the data. What about what you do with that then? Is there anything we can add there, do you think, that might help? Anything sort of tactical in terms of when we've got that interest, we know someone's sort of shown interest? How does we're into proposals, so how does the proposal side of things work? How do you sort of fit the sales process in?
Yeah, it's good to consider reaching out. That confidence thing comes back into it again. We've seen it with many of our own clients. They are fearful of possibly picking up the phone, even to an existing client, to say, hey, we noticed that you've been on this page. Some people think, oh, it's a bit bit big brothery? Is it a bit stalkery? And it is, but most people get that this stuff exists these days. So
We are
I don't
so
think
past
there'll
that
be
now, I
too
think.
quick
I
to-
thought this, but I think we've definitely passed those times, actually. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's good to just go, well, we watch this stuff because we want to help people in the best way. It's not about selling something. Well, I mean, it is, you want the money, but you do that by helping someone. You help someone to buy, and you help them to buy the right thing. And through that, you then get extra stickiness, you get extra revenue, and your client goes away feeling that they value the relationship even more because you've just given them advice. And yeah, you've sold them something extra, but they're only going to buy it if it really has impact and value. And if they trust that relationship with you, they should buy it without question. So using that intent data, like the first instance is, it might want to send a LinkedIn message if you're already connected with them. You might want to send them an email that's hyper personalized. Don't send something that's a stock template. Tailor it to we keep an eye on stuff that goes on our website. We notice you've been on this page, you spent a few minutes kind of looking at that content. So, my job to help you get the best success out of your technology is to be aware of trends and patterns in your business and help you where we can to leverage tech so you can save money and be more productive and stuff. So
that's a really nice way to frame it, isn't it? Because you can easily put them off. They might just never come back to your site again. And so they, oh no, crikey, they know every time I visit a page. Yeah. They hassle me for the rest of the time. But no, I love the way you frame that. Yeah, that's good.
So I think it overcomes the issues of the fear of they're gonna I think we're stalking them or whatever, and it's a sales opportunity. But we think you might be interested in something, you want to learn more about it. We've got a content series that we're putting together. Here's some videos that you might find of interest. So kind of have those kind of assets ready on the 2 or 3 topical messages that might be of relevance right now. And cyber's always going to be there. AI is probably another one. So many MSPs say, oh, we're not experts in AI, and you keep hearing of all these events now where there's so-called expert on AI, and they're not. AI has been around for 5 minutes, so no one's an expert, unless you've got someone from OpenAI or Microsoft or whatever in the room, then no one is an expert. They've just played around with ChatGPT for a couple of hours more than average Joe, and suddenly they can call themselves an expert. So you already know more than... It's
a very cynical view, but yeah, you're right. I know you're right.
Yeah, it's speakers, isn't it? We do it. We pretend that Mark's an expert in websites and marketing so we can get him on stage.
You know it's being recorded, don't you?
I love winding him up. He's so easy to do. He doesn't come to the office anymore. He's scared we might pick on him. So if people focus on building up their confidence that I know more about this than my clients, therefore I have authority to be able to have this conversation, because you understand technology, you understand its application in a business, and to a degree you understand their workflow and what they're trying to achieve. So by joining the dots, which is exactly what you've done for years, no one knew about 365. No one was a 365 expert when SBS was a thing. Suddenly SBS died, you had to migrate everybody. You then had to learn it. It's a painful experience. MSPs have had to reinvent themselves a million times over the last 25 years or so. And now it's the same again with AI. Most people haven't yet figured out how to make money from it. So there's that important, piece of consulting to be done around that, so you can actually earn some money from it. But that kind of stuff, aspirational stuff that helps businesses punch above their weight. So the MSP is not a cost on the bottom line that's like insurance. We phone you when something breaks. I don't really understand my ROI unless I've had a lot of problems. And if I've had a lot of problems, are you doing your job right in the first place? It all becomes a sour conversation. But if you can add to their bottom line by, you've just saved Doris in accounts 5 hours a week because she can run stuff through AI instead of doing a load of laborious admin, think about the money you've saved that firm, particularly, like most MSPs serve some flavour of professional services, lawyers, accountants. They bill themselves out at a high hourly rate. So if you've just saved them a couple of hours, that's 2 extra hours and they get to bill $1,000 an hour or something ridiculous. That ROI you're giving back to that business is huge. So have confidence in putting together this content that helps businesses drip feed it out, follow the interest, follow up on the interest, to have a conversation, and then continue to drip feed stuff in until they're ready to have that sales conversation of, all right, how much is this going to cost me then?
It's definitely a case of, is it perfection is the enemy of done? Is that right? I mean, it is a case of actually just executing.
Progress.
And that's right. Exactly. Dave, listen, this has been great. You've given us loads here. We've got a couple of segments actually in this podcast, so I'd like to run a couple past you. And this one is a beautiful segue because it's a question from our previous guest. Now, let me find this one for you. So, This actually ties into the AI topic, and this is what we call pass the pitchfork. So Brian Doyle of VCIO Toolbox asks, as a bootstrapped MSP, we're doing all the grassroots expansion, but struggling with manual prospecting and outreach. How can we automate our sales development without juggling 50 different tools? And where does AI fit in to help us simulate that SDR relationship that we can't afford to hire yet?
Grafting, yeah, hard graft. It's what I did from starting as a brand new, fresh, wet behind the ears sales guy in my first MSP of starting to build some relationships, connections. LinkedIn, I don't think it was really a thing back then, so I didn't even really have that tool in my arsenal. So I would suggest you build up your personal profile. People will trust your business if they can trust you as an individual. Being an influencer, if you like, and I'm not talking about bikinis on Instagram, but content that is relatable to your target audience, and it will feel very lonely as you're doing these videos and putting bits and pieces out. But as you build connections and they see you, they trust you, they see you more often, you can then start those conversations. So there are loads of tools out there that can make recording and editing video way easier than it used to be. Publishing stuff, you can do it in advance. So if you dedicate, even if you're 5 days a week supporting customers, you sit down on a Sunday afternoon, record 5 videos or something on a particular topic, cut up into small segments that you will then post over the course of the next 3 or 4 weeks maybe. And then there are AI tools you can use that are illegitimate from LinkedIn standpoint because they don't allow or they don't like people using these automated outreach tools. But there are tools that you can use, and Dripify or something might be one of them. I've come across a lot recently to automate connection requests and then sending people messages to follow up. And if you've already got that content there and you've got something you can share with them that doesn't feel pushy, doesn't feel salesy, you're just sharing a tidbit of information. Here you go, Fred. I thought you might be interested in seeing this. Then it can spark conversation because you never know where that might go. So that's what I would do if I was to start from scratch, start building my own audience of credible, real contacts in real businesses that fit my target demographic, that I perhaps have some awareness of, some success stories or something in their market, so I can speak with authority and build some relationships that will start you having conversations.
That's very good. And then layering that AI element where you can, or the automated element, I should say, that'll help you get that message out there. Brilliant. Have you got a question for our next guest? It could be an MSP expert. It could be an MSP. Any question that you would like answered? It'll be challenging.
I knew you were going to ask me this. I felt it coming.
Where are the gaps in your knowledge? What's on your plate at the moment that you'd like help with?
Well, this might be a hard one, but something that's in my mind at the moment is buying customers. There are lots of MSPs that are, going through the acquisition cycle because it's got to the point where the market's saturated, and instead of grafting to build their own from scratch, spending money on marketing, they just go and buy another MSP. But effectively, you're buying their customers. So if you do the maths on what is that per seat that it's costing me. Say it's £500,000. I could ramble on about this for ages. I don't know how much time you got left, but say it's £500,000 MSP. Say a seat is worth £1,000 a year, and they've got 500 seats. Say that's how they get to £500,000 revenue. That might cost you, I don't know, £350,000 to buy that MSP. Divide that by the 500 seats they've got, gives you a price per seat to buy those seats instead of investing in marketing. Yes. So. But you've got to have the cash, the wherewithal to be able to do that and go through that painful process. If you haven't got the cash, you don't have the means of doing that, but you want to acquire customers, the price to acquire customers through marketing is often not too dissimilar. So my question is, if you say, as a marketer, I can't do this, but if I could, maybe I could come and say, I can sell you a new client and it's going to cost you 15 grand. Would you give me 15 grand for a new client? And the instant response might be, no, go away. But if you think about it for a second, well, actually, the months of investment it might take in marketing to be able to get there, or buying another MSP to buy their customers, they might churn, we might not keep them. Actually, the numbers come out the same. So if you've got that guarantee of buying customers against a fixed price, you would view it like that. But the reality is that, of course, marketing doesn't work like that. There's all the unknowns. So what does success look like? How do you budget for success? How do you budget to reach a sales goal? That's kind of a slightly ambiguous question that I'm not sure how I need to reframe that so it's something more structured for you to ask somebody. But that's kind of my thought of everyone sort of whenever we ask them, a new MSP comes along and we say, have you got a budget in mind? Where are you going to start? Oh, I don't know. I hope you were going to tell me that. So, well, if you're going to do all these puzzle pieces, you've got all of the elements that are needed for success.
Yes.
And you might be spending 10, 15 grand a month or more, but that's probably not realistic or accessible. And are you going to do that for 12 to 18 months before you start to land deals and pay it off? So therefore, what is the budget? What is a good budget, and how long can you run that budget for before you start to get success? I suppose I'm looking for opinions more than a right answer, maybe.
I think that's a fantastic question, and I think our next guest is going to be ideal to answer that one. I won't reveal who it is because that might change, but I think that's going to be a great one for them, because what you're basically asking is what the client acquisition cost, what's a sensible acquisition cost, and then where is the best place to source that, bearing in mind you've accurately accounted for every element of it, not just the whatever it was to deliver the campaign, it's the time and effort. Yeah. I think that's a great question.
You've summarised it really nicely there, actually. CPL and CPA or CAC or whatever you want to call it to actually win clients. If we said to most MSPs, what is that now? Most would say zero, because it's referral. It costs nothing. But the problem is that's like Fiesta to Ferrari territory. There's nothing in the middle. You either spend nothing and you get referrals, but there's no predictability, etc., or you invest a reasonable sum or a significant sum for many to be able to get success, because that's what it takes. Otherwise, if you're halfway in between, you're then pissing into the wind and it just hits you in the face, and actually you then have nothing to show for it because you can't make enough impact. And that's where, if businesses are in that place, it's the example for the question from the previous guest of just graft. If you don't have budget, graft yourself. Obviously, the budget is then time instead of physical cash to graft, to start to build a bit of an audience. But if you're going to go and invest and do it properly and have something that's predictable and a bit of an engine that you can move forward with, rather than a flash in the pan campaign that has a little bit of intent to show for it, but it's got no forward planning, there's no nurturing, there's no guarantee of conversion or anything. You've got to invest properly, and it's that. What's sensible? Because if people sit back and think of LTV, lifetime value on an MSP client, if it's anywhere between 1 and 2K per seat per year, in the US, dollars, it's probably more anyway, because they get to charge more probably per head than an MSP would get away with in the UK. But and then if you times that by 3, so 3 years as a conservative estimate for lifetime retention of a client, and most MSPs would be 7 to 10 years or more maybe. But if you did it on 3 years, you then know, okay, each seat's worth 3, 4, 5K maybe over that period of time. So you think, okay, well, now I get the investment makes sense, because I know what my lifetime value is. So I know it's worthwhile me spending 15 grand on acquiring 20 seat customer, because I get that money back and some over the 3 years, let alone keeping them beyond that. So that's something that I think the market needs to start to think about and do their numbers on, which is really hard when most of their clients have been acquired by spending nothing.
Yes, it's a numbers game, and it's a cash flow conundrum, isn't it? Our final segment, Dave, I think you're going to like this one. We call it Industry Manure. So this is advice that you hear banded around in the industry that you just think, that doesn't sit right with me. I think that's a crock of shit, honestly. Top of the pile, what have you got for me?
2 things I think that are equally important, and both totally different. One is, if I had £1 every time an MSP said to me, just get me in front of customers and I can sell, because of this false confidence that it's not their fault. They built this confidence through selling to referrals. Suddenly there's a shock. It's like coming out of the sauna and jumping in the plunge pool in dealing with cold new prospects, or maybe even existing customers that they don't know, that they don't have a relationship with. You've got to build that from scratch. And they forget, or they're misled by selling to referrals, that it's a done deal, it's their deal to lose. But they don't realise the time and energy and emotional roller coaster that you go through trying to sell to people that you don't really know, that you've got to foster a relationship with, particularly if it's cold business that you've knocked on their door and said, hey, we want to do business with you. There's no guarantee that they're then going to want to switch. There's the whole, well, why am I going to switch? Why you guys? So that's a big thing that people need to think about. It's one thing to start marketing, it's another to have a sales mechanism behind the scenes with the right proposal, the right proposition. And that leads me on to the second point. I'm very anti-stack. Vendors have built up this stack model because it's neat for them to sell products in that format. And it's neater for MSPs, in theory, to go and sell a perfect stack that's, $100 per seat per month or whatever it might be, to include certain things. And the ideal world, the prospects just go, yeah, we want that, and we take it all. And whether that's good, better, best, or it's just one stack that you have and we say, no, you must buy that or else. The real world doesn't work like that. If it's a brand new customer, particularly, they don't have the trust established, and they might be maturing to you from the incumbent MSP. They might be still going from break fix or block hours into an MSP model, in which case going from an invoice, once in a blue moon for a little bit of time here and there, to something every month that is quite a significant investment, even though it's oodles of value. If they can't see the value, then it's just overwhelming and it looks prohibitively expensive. So I say I'm anti-stack because I think MSPs need to have the confidence to do their homework with a prospect to say, what's your current pricing model? How do you pay? I had clients in my MSP days that were like, your support's expensive. Yeah, because you're paying for a leased line, you're paying for cloud services, you're paying for all these other things that's in one invoice. They just look at the total sum at the bottom. And although we itemized it out, for all intents and purposes, they saw it as a stack and go, IT support's expensive. Like, no, this is your whole IT budget. So I think people need to think differently on sell in a way that your customers sell their services. And that's really hard. Behind the scenes, your delivery is exactly the same. The way you package it up in your proposal is to tailor it in language that the customer would understand. Is it a dentist you're selling to? Then you sell it on the basis of, here's initial health check where you come in and get your teeth looked at, and it's a one-off fee and that's it. And then here's the healthcare plan where you're going to come in once every 6 months and you're going to have a clean and you're going to have a checkup and you pay a flat fee for it. And then they go, oh yeah, I get that, because that's how we sell our business. So if you're able to wrap yours up in a similar way to the way that they sell their services, it's far harder for them to object. Because when you just go, no, we're just like you, we sell in the same way, they then go, oh yeah, okay, yeah, fair point, I get it now. So it's really tough from a packaging perspective. Would every proposal be different for every single prospect? There's the danger of that. So don't go that far. But just wrap things up in a way that's, what do they care about? What do they want to achieve? Not a stack of features, a list of products that they don't really know or care what they are, but they care about the outcomes. So could you sell like Trivial Pursuit pieces? You've got your uptime, you've got your productivity, you've got your strategy and budgeting and road mapping and stuff. So they can then see, oh yeah, okay, I get why we need all of these pieces to come together. So you're still selling a stack, but it's just how you wrap it up. What colour ribbon do you put around it and what sticker do you put on it for them just to resonate and understand it? That's my biggest thing. Anti-stack, don't let the vendors dictate to you for how you should be selling to your customers. Reframe it, relabel it in a way that's going to resonate with the way that they sell their services.
It's a great point. And that idea of making sure you're always in tune with who you're speaking to is something that you can't go wrong with, whether it's a role within a business or it's a business within a vertical or whatever. And of course, all this becomes easier if you are dealing with a specific vertical or a limited vertical. You've got a great opportunity there to really talk in their language. Dave, it's been wonderful to talk to you. We could have made this a much longer episode. I'm very aware of that. We are definitely going to have you back for some other segments. But for now,
because it is, I don't envy you having to do the edit. So
hey, not a problem. I'd rather have all that value, and there's not much to cut down, so that's much appreciated. Listen, we have a final segment, and that's the yell from the barn. And And that's your opportunity to let us know where we can reach out to you if you want to be reached out to, and what's going on that's interesting at Wingman at the moment. What is it, who are you and what is it you're doing at the moment?
Oh, yes, thank you. Come and check out our website. It's not great because we're building a new one because we're too busy doing marketing for everybody else and not for ourselves. So cut us some slack if you look at our website, wingmanmspmarketing.com. We have a free website review. So if you aren't sure where you stand on presenting your brand to customers as well as prospects, make sure that you're articulating the right thing, you're getting your value across in solving problems, not selling product, then come and do our website review and we can start a conversation about pointing you in the right direction for how to improve your website. Or if you want to pay us to do it, we would love to help you. It's what we do day in, day out to help MSPs better present their business.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's not difficult to find out more about you guys. You are kind of everywhere, definitely a well-established brand in the space. It is wonderful to pick your brains. Thank you so much for your time. And Dave, I'm going to hopefully see you around in person very soon.
Thanks very much.
All the best. Cheers. That was great, wasn't it? I really enjoyed watching that one back. Dave is just such good value. I hope, regardless of the size of MSP that you are or where you are in the world, you've got something from that and you're able to action some of these many, many notes that you're going to have from this session. So I guess the place to start with recapping it is the confidence. That was key. That's what we started out with, wasn't it? So making sure that you're having confident conversations with existing customers regularly, and you're not talking about service reviews. You're talking about actual roadmap discussions. What are they doing? Then we talked about the idea of intent data. So that's an area, if you're not doing anything yet, I definitely recommend it. Being able to identify who's on your website to a degree to trigger personalized outreach, really important. If you've got existing customers, that's gold. Also, when we're talking about gold, that PSA of yours is full of great content ideas. So if you're looking for campaign ideas, there's no better place to start, really. If you are going to do anything, Dave's advice, do it over a longer time if you can. Don't just do a one-hit wonder, rule it out, and that's it. Marketing doesn't work. So make sure you've got 10 to 12 weeks of campaigns. And then Dave also had quite a controversial view on the idea that vendor stacks have kind of permeated the MSP space, and we're all off selling in the same way, regardless of how our customers buy. So this is something you need to let percolate, put your own spin on. Are there clients in your industry, or are you going after a particular vertical where maybe that stack of yours doesn't make so much sense? Maybe it would be better to sell to them in a slightly different way. A fascinating point. Hope you got loads from it. It was great to have you. Until next time, bye for now. That is it for this episode of Harvest. If you found this useful, all the links we mentioned are in the show notes. And of course, if you enjoyed it, please do leave us a review and share it with a friend, or even better, someone else in the industry who you know would get value from it. Until next time, happy harvesting.